What about you? If you can select the most awe-inspiring moment, Paul, of the 20th century and 21st century, which moments from both centuries would you select as the most awe-inspiring moment, and why?
And the thing that I picked that really stood out in my life and really made an impact on me in many, many ways was space travel and the moon landing. As Neil Armstrong took his first step on the moon and uttered the words, one small step for man, one big leap for mankind. This was amazing to me. It was amazing in a couple ways. At that time in the world, there was two superpowers. It was Russia and it was us. And we were battling in a Cold War. And then Kennedy made it a space race. And it was three things that really stood out to me. Number one, the technology. At 12 years old, I didn't really understand it, but I do now. The technology to be able to launch a rocket into space, specifically to get to the moon, then be able to land it on the moon, and then be able to take off, come back, and have a splashdown in an ocean that's small as a pea, with computers and the communication, and being able to watch this all happen live on TV. And then the last thing really that really stood out to me was the imagination part. You know, before that, really, when you went out on Halloween and got a costume, it was, I was a cowboy, or I was a policeman, or I was a fireman, you know. But now you add on to, I'm an astronaut now. I can go into space. You know, watching the Jetsons as a kid, you know, they had a robot. They predicted Zoom calls, what we're on right now. And then, of course, Star Trek, who I'm a big fan of, you know, watching, you know, exploring great galaxies and finding life where we don't know if it is. Is there somebody else out there? But here's another thing that really hit me about Star Trek. Star Trek, you know, Lost in Space was a family in space. Star Trek was diversity in space. We saw women, we saw black people, we saw, you know, Asians, we saw everybody on this ship going to explore together in the space. We also saw Klingons and green people, but, you know, it was diversity in space. You know, that's what I thought back on the 20th century of really awe-inspiring. It was the technology, but it was more the imagination of, let's think outside the box and see what we can do as a community.
If you can select, Sidney, the most awe-inspiring moment in the 20th century and the most awe-inspiring moment in the 21st century, which moments would you select and why? The floor is yours, good sir.
The awe-inspiring moment for me is actually personal. I didn't really think I would play in the NBA. I never watched the NBA game and said, one day that would be me. That was just so far like away from me that I never thought that would happen. But one thing we always tell young people, and we tell CEOs and people that are doing mentoring, is that you really can't be what you can't see. But Charles Ripley, bless his soul, he took me and a couple more people 2 hours to Memphis, drove to the ball game, stayed at a hotel. We walk across the street to the Piccadilly Circle cafeteria. They had great food. And we walk in and we see these really tall basketball guys. It was the Virginia Squares. And we watched them eat. We watched how they communicated with each other. We watched how respectful they were. And that moment shaped how I dealt with people somewhat, because I wanted to be human. They were, you said it earlier, they were what? Human. They were engaging. They were respectful. They were kind. They were all the things that a person should be if you're at a certain status. And that experience, watching them, first of all, watching them at the restaurant and then watching them play the Memphis Tams, the game that evening, shaped how I felt I needed to interact with people. And that was just so much fun. In addition to, you can't be what you can't see. So I saw it, and at some point I internalized that and I started to become that.
And as I did my research, as I talked about looking at some of the guys in the NBA who kind of fit what I possibly may end up being. My father was only 5'7". My mom was 5 feet. My oldest brother was 5'5", and my sister was 5'1". So I knew I was going to be in that 5-foot range. Come then discovering the Calvin Murphys and the Charlie Chris, seeing those actually on that type of stage and that type of setting, it really started to, doing a lot of things in my brain. But I think what I went through as a kid, getting shot and having to overcome those buckshots. And then, as you mentioned earlier, when I met my blessing, I will call him Mr. Leon Howard, when he gave me that information and allowed me to really start to focus on the fundamental aspects of the game, not knowing that God had given me natural ability to really play the game as well and see it from a whole different perspective. By witnessing all of that and by seeing Charlie and Calvin play on the highest level that you can ever play on in the NBA, it really fueled me, and it really started that journey for me that I didn't care about what anybody said.
And Muggsy, maybe the same for you, my friend. Moses Malone, he was kind of someone who took you under his wing, gave you the ins and outs of the NBA, how to stay focused, stay even-keeled. Moses did that as well, right?
Absolutely. Moses was my vet. He took me on his wing. Without his guidance, I wouldn't have played 14 years. I mean, he told me the do's and don'ts off the court. And it's kind of ironic. I played the point guard position. He was the center, but he was the one that really took a liking into me, and really, until he took his last breath, we were so close.
Another Moses story. I remember as a rookie going to camp, trying to make the team, and we're practicing at Baptist College or something like that. And I get a cab or whatever because I don't have a car or anything. And Moses always pulls up in a different car every day. He's got like 7 different cars, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And I got the courage one day after practice to ask him, Moses, how, you have all these cars. He says, you know why, big fella? Because I can afford to.
That's great. But there's a lot of weird things that happen. Do you ever notice that if you're supposed to put something in a microwave for 2 minutes, you rarely wait the full 2 minutes? I can never wait the full 2 minutes. No, right? Ever.
Yeah.
I'm 154, and this is the part of my brain that I don't understand. I beat myself up. I'm like, Avi, it's 154. You can't wait 6 seconds? Nope, pull it out.
Pull it out.
Muggsy, if you could title a screenplay about the year 2025, any way you see it, what would you title it and why? The floor is yours whenever you're ready to go, good sir.
If I could title a screenplay, what would I title it? No Small Thing.
Yes.
No Small Thing. That will be the title of it. And that will be the journey of my life in terms of where I've come from, the little kid from the project to the Godfather of small ball.
Move with caution. There are unlimited possibilities, good and bad. Move forward with caution.
Hey, you know what? I wish we could stop rooting for our politicians the way we root for our sports teams. Can we stop doing that? Why do people have to treat it like a popularity contest? You know what I mean? Why do they have to say, well, you're definitely not my friend and you're not invited anymore because you didn't vote left or right? What the hell is going on here? Can't people have a civil discourse anymore? Can't we talk about...
Just like in coaching, when coaching became criticism back years ago, it wasn't coaching anymore, it was criticism.
Oh, okay.
Just like that, today in politics, anything I say becomes facts, even though they're not.
But I'm going to go back to the first book I wrote, and it would be titled Reinvent You. Because I really believe that we should not ever feel like a failure defines who we are. We should never feel like we can't make an adjustment in our lifestyle, in our career, in our relationships, and that we have to always constantly be innovative in reinventing who we are in some shape, form, or fashion. It came from the fact that I was in the NBA, I had an automobile dealership, and then I coached in the D League. Then I went to China. So I had all these things happening in like a 5-year span. I'm like, wow, that's a lot. And each time I had to reinvent who I was. And it was it was fun. It was challenging, and it's something that made me a better, more well-rounded person.
This is my son's favorite picture, me blocking you.
You see that, Muggsy?
So this is an awesome show. Thank you for having me, including me.
Did this exceed your expectations today?
Absolutely, definitely. It's very unique, and it's inspiring, and it's content-driven, and it has an intentional purpose of making everyone better. So great job. And